College basketball road to madness. Our second show is ready to take off. We got a weekend of college basketball action in the books. Our man Dynamite David is with us as always. You ready to break down the weekend games and get into this week's games?
Let's do it.
All right, let's kick off Friday. There were a couple games to look at here on Friday. We'll start off with probably the biggest one on the day. Michigan State, Wisconsin. Michigan State went in there and beat up on Wisconsin pretty good. Does this make you think anything less of Wisconsin, or do you always thought Michigan State was probably a better team here?
I think this makes me think a little bit less of Wisconsin. You know, we talked on our last show how these kind of all these teams right here in the around the top were all in the same tier, and we were looking for some separation. I think this provides a little clarity here. You had mentioned that you thought Michigan State was the more legitimate team. I think you were right on the money with that because they pretty much dominated this game from beginning to end.
Yeah, the only thing that, gave me a little pause here was the margin of victory. I thought, Wisconsin might have given a little bit better battle, but they didn't. Next up in the Big Ten, this was one I was a little higher on Illinois. They looked really, really bad versus Maryland. I think, Maryland's got a couple wins here in a row, starting to get the program back to where I think we thought at the beginning of the season it was after all the turmoil with the coach. Looking a little less at Illinois here, or maybe Maryland starts to make a little bit of a push here towards the end in the Big Ten.
I I don't know if I'm buying Maryland just yet. I think this is more of just Illinois kind of in a downward spiral after that loss to Purdue. I mean, this Maryland team I still think is ranked 13th in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
We're about halfway through conference play now, so they've got a lot of climbing to do. But this is an Illinois team that was first in the Big Ten last week, so they're falling fast, and they're going to need to turn things around.
Yeah.
But we'll wait and see on Maryland. But I'm not quite a believer on them yet.
Yeah, Illinois' inconsistency sort of just, which has pretty much gone all season, just continues again. Granted, Friday night road game, difficult, but, the way they got beat, a little disconcerting. We'll move into the MAC and the showdown for the two top teams in the MAC. And let me tell you, I was surprised that Toledo went into Ohio and beat them up as much as they did. But nonetheless, Toledo looks like the team to beat here in the MAC. They got a big matchup. We'll get to it versus Buffalo. But were you shocked at the result in this one, that it was just so lopsided towards Toledo? Because I really thought Ohio was the team to beat here in the MAC.
Yeah, I definitely thought this game would be a lot closer, especially Toledo going on the road in here. Just really impressive win by 20 on the road. We'll see if Ohio can bounce back, but Toledo's definitely taking charge here.
Yeah, definitely so. We'll go to our 2-for-1 I gave. Merrimack had matchups versus Bryant and Wagner, the two top teams in the Northeast, and they went down pretty bad. So I think this probably crosses Merrimack out of there, and we're looking at Bryant and Wagner as a showdown in the Northeast Conference here, definitely.
Yeah, these were games you were really focused on. I have to admit I didn't watch these games, but we'll start to see some separation, and I'm going to start focusing in on some of these smaller teams because that's where the money's going to be made.
Yeah, definitely so. Bryant seemed to have found their form after playing a real tough schedule early and not doing so well, but they've gotten into conference and started beating people up. Wagner's just been solid all season long. Next up, I threw this in there. I didn't have it as our games of the week on Friday, but St. Bonaventure's, who lost earlier in the week, got back on the winning track here versus Duquesne. Just curious, we didn't, get into St. Bonaventure's on our seating. They've had, hot and cold starts, a little bit of a COVID thing. What do you make of St. Bonaventure's here? Getting the win versus Duquesne, but do you think they're a legit team that can maybe crash in on that Sweet 16 party?
Yeah, I think they're definitely capable of a Sweet 16. Now, where they get seeded is the question. You look at their strength of schedule and who they played and consistency there. But I think they're definitely capable of going in as like a 5 or a 6 seed and maybe getting through. But they're going to have to win probably the majority of their games on the way out, even to get that high, just with the strength of schedule.
Yeah, definitely so. I had them as a sort of dark horse going in here, and they've just sort of let me down, just with their inconsistent play. I know COVID has sort of wrecked them. They missed almost a month of their season there, but nonetheless, back on the winning track. We'll see if they can get, rolling again. And lastly, the Mountain West. I talked about Fresno making a push, towards maybe a tournament berth. Tough loss versus Nevada here. Still, I think with a legitimate shot if they make a run, because I think there are a lot of quality teams in the Mountain West: San Diego State, Boise State, Wyoming. This Nevada team's solid, not great, but disappointing loss here for Fresno. I think this is one they had to have.
Yeah, definitely. You talked about them building momentum, and they needed to go in and get this win over Nevada if they wanted to get people believing that they were the real deal in that conference. Let down, but there's still some opportunities down the road.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, we'll get to Saturday's games here. The big one, Kentucky, Auburn. Auburn pretty much dominated this game the whole way through. Definitely in the second half, really sort of took control of the game. Basically, I just think Auburn's the better team here. Watching this game, I thought they had the better players in this one.
Yeah, that's my initial reaction, but I go back, I rewatched this game for a second time, and really Kentucky had control of this game for most of the first half, up until Ty Washington went out with about 8 minutes left. I saw Kessler looked really good. He got a lot of where the guard would penetrate, draw a double team, and he'd have a slam dunk. He had one of his better games, and I think the length of Kessler really gave Kentucky's big man Sheboy some trouble down low. Kind of challenged him a little bit to where his ball skills are going to have to improve a little bit if he wants to go up against the elite big man. He can't just dominate everyone and grab every rebound. So I still like this Kentucky team. I think if they get healthy, they may not be able to grab that 1 seed depending on how the season goes, but watch out come tournament time, because if they're healthy going to the tournament, I really like this Kentucky team.
Yeah, that's interesting, your take on this one. I didn't watch it live. I had to watch it after I already knew the result of the game, and I watched it. And my feel on it, I just thought Auburn, they might not have been winning, but I never thought, Kentucky really was the dominant team here. And that might be just because I already knew the result and I knew what was coming. They played them solid in that first half. I just thought, as I was watching, I was like, Auburn's always a better team. Once shots start going down, they're going to pull this away. But once again, that's sort of one of those things where, you're playing the result because I already knew the result, in my head. So maybe I watched it with a little bit of a biased eye. I think you watched a little more of it live before your Titans game there than I did.
Yeah, I actually watched this one all live all the way through, and I went back and recapped it. It was a great basketball game, and I think both of these teams are capable of Final Four runs as far as talent. But like I said, I think Sheboy needs to develop more down low. This is the first game I think he's been challenged against another elite big man. But Auburn's definitely capable of going to the Final Four again. This is the best big man they've had. They've usually relied on guard play and shooting, and they didn't really have a whole. They had some threes in this game, but it was really just a lot of interior play in this one. So I don't know if that threw off Kentucky's game plan, but like I said, I think both of these teams are still good. It was a really hard road environment for Kentucky, and they still competed well. So don't ever count out Calipari and the Cats. This is a good team.
Yeah, definitely so. It was. I will say it was good to see Auburn win this game without necessarily having to have those guards, light it up from the outside. They've been so sort of guard 3-point shooting heavy throughout Bruce Pearl's probably tenure there at Auburn, especially since he's gotten them rolling. So that was a nice sort of spot to see that maybe if the guards aren't hitting, they can sort of switch a little bit of style and they don't lose too much on the offensive side of things. Let's go to another one of the top teams. Pretty cruisy game for them. Baylor versus Oklahoma. Right now, I watched a couple of these games here. I think Baylor's probably the best team in college basketball. I know they had that little blip, but when they're flowing defensively, a lot like last year, they can just sort of python you into submission on that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, this was a game that I was kind of hoping that maybe we'd see something from Oklahoma. They've got a couple of good wins on the season, but really wanted to see how they compete with Baylor because, like you, I think Baylor's one of the best teams in the country, and Baylor did what they do. They forced Oklahoma into I think 21 turnovers in this one, so that was really the difference in the game. And it's funny. You look at Baylor. I think they had 17 turnovers in this game, but
Yeah.
the way they play. Uh, the turnovers don't necessarily hurt them as bad. They want the game up and down, fast paced, whether they're turning it over or forcing the other team to turn over. It's just a up and down, and they're really good, and that defense is going to be really challenging come tournament time.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a field of old school sort of Nolan Richards' style. Not quite that aggressive, but if they get it into sort of hectic mode where both teams are, trying to do stuff faster than they can, they got control of this game, and they're going to end up on top. So, interesting result. I'm curious what we're going to get from Oklahoma because they've really, once they've gotten into conference play, they have not quite looked as good as they did in non-conference play. So, curious to see if they can sort of bounce back and put together a couple wins here.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma's going to end up being right on the bubble. It'll be interesting to see whether they do enough to get in, but I think they're going to be right on the edge of getting into the tournament.
Yeah, this one I don't think the result was all that in doubt here. Villanova beat up on Georgetown. I'm just curious, can this Villanova team make a run to the Final Four? Do you think it's that kind of capable team? I mean, when they're flowing offensively like this, they look pretty impressive. But then we talked about it. You see games where it's not flowing and then they get beat.
I guess the one good thing you can look at with this Villanova team is they've really been challenged. So once they get into the elite levels, if they get into the Sweet 16, they're going to be ready for some of these games. Now, like you said, their offense is really relying on hitting those shots. So maybe they can get some momentum, but I do like the fact that they've kind of run through the gauntlet and really challenged themselves. I like it when teams get that tough schedule. Win or lose, they play the best in the country, and I like that.
Yeah. Next up, LSU, Tennessee. I thought this one was one Tennessee had to have to show they can at least play and beat these elite teams. Tight game throughout, and then Tennessee sort of pulled away there that second half, and LSU just went into a scoring drought. Are you concerned at all with LSU and how that offense the last couple weeks really has been poor? Or you think it's just one of those, a little downside, they'll bounce right back up? And what'd you think of Tennessee in this game?
Yeah, I thought going in, this was a game that both of these teams needed really desperately. LSU had 2 consecutive losses coming in. Tennessee hadn't won back-to-back games in about a month. So both of these teams really, needed this win. And it started out ugly. There was a manager scuffle before the game and just really physical game. I do think that, Tennessee shot the ball early really well, and that gave them a lead that they kind of just hang on to the rest of the way. It was really a back-and-forth game, but, Tennessee just had that lead at the beginning that LSU couldn't quite make up throughout the whole game. But I think LSU is going to have to get a little bit more consistently offensively. Some guards are going to have to step up. But it was nice to see Tennessee hit some shots. Now, they did hit some shots early, but I think at one point they attempted 13 three-pointers in a row. Not a fan of that when you're in the 200th ranking of three-point shooting. So I still think Tennessee needs to work the ball inside more, but it was good to get a win against a really strong defensive team like LSU. But still look for Tennessee to do something on the road. They haven't really performed well on the road this year, except other than at Vanderbilt. So we'll see what they do.
That wasn't all that pretty.
Yeah. So I need to see some road wins from this Tennessee team after getting just crushed at Kentucky. So we'll see how it goes forward. But LSU, 3-game skid, they're probably looking at falling out of the top 25 now. We'll see if they can recover. But like I said, they need some consistency, especially at guard play.
Yeah, definitely so. I thought really good win for Tennessee. At least shows they can, hang with a handful of these teams we think are, in the top tier elite. One that might be fallen out of the elite here, and I think both you and I were still high on even after they, had lost a handful in a row there. But this one's a little bit tougher to take. They were at home. Granted, TCU's, I think, flown a little bit under the radar. Jamie Dixon hasn't played pretty good basketball here, but 59-44, lose at home. Are we still holding on to Iowa State here, or are we going to start pulling back and wait to see if they can sort of bounce back here?
Well, I think there's still opportunity for them to get some big wins.
They have another
And
tough
I
week
guess
this week too, though.
and really a lot of the voters and the committee, I think, respect the Big 12. It's got a lot of good teams top to bottom in this Big 12. So Iowa State's still got some room to get some wins, but this is a really ugly loss, and they're going to have to turn something around quick and get some scoring and consistency. But give some props to TCU. They may just sneak their way in the top half of the conference here because they've been playing really good basketball.
Yeah, I think this still says a lot about TCU. I don't think anyone knows they're sort of creeped up in those standings in the Big 12. They sort of quietly have snaked their way up there as a couple of those other top tier teams have dropped off in conference play. They seem to have played pretty well in conference play and handled it nicely. Got another tough game this week. We'll see how they handle that one. But nice win by TCU. Stay in the Big 12 here. Not shocked that Texas Tech won this game 78-65 at home versus West Virginia. I'm just curious what you think about West Virginia. It's not quite as aggressive defensively as a handful of those Huggins teams have been in the past. They got a handful of nice wins here, but it just seems this isn't a classic sort of West Virginia team. I'm curious what you think about them overall.
Yeah, when I think of, these Huggins West Virginia teams, I think of the really just in-your-face defense, kind of like what we see at Baylor now.
Yeah.
And just haven't seen that the last couple of years from West Virginia. Now, that being said, I thought their guards looked pretty good, but, Texas Tech just dominated in the paint. I was seeing offensive rebound after offensive rebound for Texas Tech, and that was the difference in this game. So, we'll see if they recover, but I just don't know. Like we were just saying, this is a tough conference, and they may struggle to stay on the top half of the rankings in this conference.
Yeah, I'm really curious. They have a tough game this week. I think West Virginia probably in a sort of must-win situation. Next up, we'll go to the Missouri Valley, and Missouri State got a nice road win over Loyola Chicago. I think that's a really good road win there. I'm curious to see if there can be two MVC teams in there. Probably hurts Loyola Chicago at large a little bit, but this is a pretty solid Missouri State team. I think I'm just more impressed with a nice win here for Missouri State, who I thought is a pretty solid, small school team here this season.
Yeah, this was an interesting game to go back and watch the highlights for. Missouri State was just on fire from three. Mosley, I think, scored 40 points, player of the week probably. But they shot 53% from the field, and that, anytime you do that, you're going to have a really good shot at winning. Loyola struggled a little bit, only shot 40%. So I think that's the difference in the game, and they're going to have to play some better defense on these shooters if they're going to want to win these big games. But really impressed with Missouri State to go into Loyola and get that win.
Yeah, definitely going to keep my eye still on Missouri State. I think this is a good team. If they could sneak into that tournament, they might be one of those who can sort of maybe spring an upset on one of these. Move to the ACC, Florida State, Miami. This sort of played out how Florida State likes the game. 61-60, they got the win here. We'll go over a couple other ACC teams down at the bottom of this Saturday. I'm curious who you think is the second best team in the ACC. I think we all agree Duke's probably the best team in the ACC here, but there are a couple, teams hovering around there. Florida State seems to have found their rhythm. Miami was hot the previous 2 weeks before that. So nice win by Florida State here, but I'm curious who you think the second best team here is in the ACC. Is it this Florida State team? Is it Miami? Is it a couple of these teams we're going to get to a little later that played Saturday?
I may shock you a little bit here. I think this Florida State team may be the best team in the ACC. Maybe not the second best team. They just got a win over Duke, I think, a week and a half ago. They beat this Miami team twice. Now, I wasn't exactly, this first half, if you've watched this game Saturday, I pointed it out as one of the games to watch going in. And Florida State was up on this one 43-19 at the half. and ended up only winning by 1 because Miami
Yes.
outscored them 41-18 in the second half. But they held on, and that's impressive to get that, 2
Especially
wins
down
against
in Miami. Good win on the road.
Yeah, so I'm really liking this Florida State. I think I'd maybe put them 1A, 1B with Duke kind of right there even. Like I said, they've already beat Duke once this year. We'll see what happens if they play again in mid-February. So we'll see how that goes down. See if Florida State can keep some of those momentum. Definitely can't be a one-half team like they were Saturday. The other team to watch out for, and I think we'll come up to in a minute, maybe put ahead of this Miami team is this your Wake Forest Demon Deacons. You're big on them, so but yeah, I really like Florida State.
Yeah, definitely so. I was sort of hoping you'd say that because I think this Florida State, it got off to a slow start, but Leonard had sort of found his flow here, and I've sort of been watching him for about 3 or 4 weeks here, and it's sort of minimal progress, and now wins are starting to come. And I wonder if they start to become the one that pushes, Duke atop that ACC here. I thought it might be Miami. Granted, they looked really good in the second half. You mentioned it. I think they're still probably hovering in there. It's just, I can't quite figure them out.
Well, one thing I was going to say about Miami real quick, and I think this is kind of what they struggled with, is I think they had 5 players with 30 plus minutes in that game.
Yeah.
So they don't go very deep at all, and that's really going to hurt you in a long basketball season. And I think that's their biggest issue. They're going to need some bench players to step up, some 6 men that can come in and play well to spell these guys, because you can't have your starting lineup playing 35, 40 minutes a game.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right, next up, Davidson versus Fordham. Davidson continues to win basketball games. I just wanted to, how serious are you taking this Davidson team? They had a couple nice early non-conference wins on the season, including one versus Alabama. So how serious are you taking this Davidson team? I mean, their offense continues to be probably one of the most efficient in basketball.
Yeah, I think more so, especially in their conference and in tournament play. If your offense can play like this, you're capable of beating anybody. And, we saw that with Alabama. That's a really, really good quality win. So we'll see how they do moving through their conference.
Yeah, definitely. So next up on our list, we're going into the Colonial. UNC Wilmington came away with a nice win over Townsend to sort of stake their claim as a top team in the Colonial. We got a couple showdowns this week with Delaware, who's probably going to throw their name in there. Townsend, once again, still stays in there because they also play Delaware this week. But a really nice win for UNC Wilmington. Another team that's really sort of fun and efficient on the offensive side of things here.
Yeah, road conference wins are always good, especially when they're in the top tier of your conference.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, next up, we're going to go into New Mexico State, Stephen F. Austin, Grand Canyon, and Sam Houston. These are the 4 best teams. They all sort of played each other this week. New Mexico State probably looks like the best team. Seattle still sort of has their hat in the ring there with their weird coaching situation, who ended up getting fired because he was yelling racial things at players. And since then, they've pretty much gone undefeated. So I don't know quite what to make of that Seattle team, but I do think these 4 are in the mix here, and New Mexico State looks like probably the dominant team here, but Sam Houston's definitely made a push since they've entered conference play, but really like the way New Mexico State has looked here between these 4 teams, Grand Canyon, Stephen F. Austin, New Mexico State, and Sam Houston.
Yeah, you look at those, those 4 scores, or the 2 scores in those between those 4 teams, and Grand Canyon, Sam Houston, 2-point game, not much separation there, but New Mexico State, winning by 14 against Stephen F. Austin, so a little bit more separation there. So as of right now, they look like the better team. We'll see how the rest of the year plays out.
Yeah, I'm curious how Grand Canyon plays. They had the tough road stretch here. They went to Stephen F. Austin earlier in the week, lost that one, then had to go to Sam Houston, lost a tight one there. We'll see if they can bounce back. Next up, we'll go to Conference USA. UAB continues to play well. Nice road win versus Louisiana Tech. Really, really impressive. So I got my eye on UAB. I think they could be a player here if they can get into the tournament. I don't know how many at-large bids they'll give out to Conference USA. Maybe two with this Louisiana Tech or Liberty team hovering around there. But I really, really like this UAB team.
Yeah, big win, going up against another potential tournament team on the road, and just to come in and secure the win pretty handily. So impressive by UAB. We'll see how they continue to play.
Yeah. We mentioned the ACC. I'm going to group these two together here. Notre Dame went into Louisville 82-70 with a win over Louisville. Louisville continues to look weird, let's just say. Yep. And then North Carolina, it was one of the days where they did not play defense, and they lost 98-76. So they continue to look weird. One day they're holding people to 50 and winning by 20. The next day they're holding people to 100 and losing by 20. But Wake continues to play pretty good basketball. Notre Dame has started to find their form a little bit here. Who are you more down on? Who are you more up on between these sort of four teams here?
I think I'm more down on North Carolina here. I think, this game was on the road, but to go in and lose by 20 to Wake Forest, who's been playing great basketball, but I don't know how legitimate they really are. I mean, North Carolina's not been that great this year, but I think Wake Forest is going to start getting a little bit more national respect now that they've beaten the Tar Heels. But, Louisville, we've kind of been seeing this from them. They've lost 4 out of their last 5. I think they're going to turn it around here soon. I think there's a big game tonight. I maybe leaning their way. And Notre Dame, I don't know if this was so much them playing good or just bad basketball from Louisville.
Yeah.
But I think North Carolina's got the biggest red flag out of those 3 teams. So
because they can't defend. Yeah. Basically anyone. So, I'm just,
that is true.
I don't know quite what to make of Notre Dame. Early in the year, I didn't think they looked very good, but they look much different now. I have no feel on Louisville whatsoever at all. North Carolina is just always a wild card. If you get defensive effort, they're probably going to win. You don't get defensive effort, they probably are going to lose. It's sort of, they either win by 20 or lose by 20. You don't know quite which one's showing up, and Wake's just been pretty consistent and fun to watch throughout. I don't know how legitimate it is. It's one of those things sort of like their football season where you didn't quite expect anything coming in, and now they continue to win games, and you are like, did everybody just read this wrong? Or are they just playing above their heads for a long stretch here? Lastly, we'll get to the last game on Saturday, the offensive classic that was Boise State and San Diego State. I apologize to anyone who watched this. Granted, they were trying to push that this was great defense all around. I'm not quite sold totally on that. Both teams very good defensively, but there are a lot of missed shots in this game. 42-37, good road win by Boise State, though. Continue to play really, really good basketball in the conference here.
Yeah, any road conference win is a good win, especially in theirs. But I did not watch this game.
You're welcome. You saved yourself lots of missed shots.
So, but yeah, I may have to start looking into Boise State a little bit more and see how legitimate of a team they are.
All right, let's go to Sunday. 3 games Sunday to talk about here. We put Northwestern Purdue result, not all that shocking home win over a poor Northwestern team, but back on the winning map. I talked about it on Thursday. I dropped Purdue a little bit because I thought they'd struggle in that game versus Indiana on the day we were recording your show. They did end up losing that game. Still really high on Purdue, or are you a little more off them after that loss versus Indiana?
I still think they're close to the top of the Big Ten. I mean, drop a game against Indiana, but they've had a good showing against Illinois. They're going to have to string some wins together to really, I was starting to buy in on them, and then they had that ugly loss, but took care of business against Northwestern. I think they have a big one coming up here this week. So we'll see how if things string 2 together, but, a lot of up and down from them. But when they're playing good, I think they're one of the best teams in college basketball. But They just got to be consistent.
Yeah. Next up, Xavier went to Marquette and got beat up pretty good here. Marquette 75, yeah. Xavier 64. This Marquette team, great, awful, okay, and now great again, apparently. So I don't quite know how to read this team, but it certainly seems like one, if they get hot at the right point in time, there definitely could be a run here. Really good win here at home versus Xavier.
Yeah, I'm really liking this Marquette team. You know, they've won their last three against, Seton Hall, Villanova, and Xavier. So really good wins back to back there. I could see them getting into the tournament. This Marquette team's going to be one of those 10, 11, 12 seeds that you do not want to play if you're a 5, 6, or 7 seed, because I think if they get things figured out, they could go deep.
Yeah, definitely so. Last one, result probably not all that shocking, but we talked about Oregon a little bit on our Thursday show, but Washington beat up on Oregon 84-56. I'm beginning to think this Oregon team might be the second best team in the Pac-12. I mean, it's a jumbled group there with Arizona, UCLA, USC, and Oregon, but they really seem to have found themselves. I'm curious where you sort of put Oregon right now.
Well, beginning of the year, I thought Oregon could compete to be one of the best teams in the country, and they kind of let me down. But I think this is a completely different Oregon team playing now. I definitely put them up there. They're going to slowly climb back up, and watch out, because I think they're going to be near the top once we get to the end of this season.
Yeah, definitely so. I think they will definitely be right up there with them. I'm just watching them. I find it hard to separate them from Arizona and UCLA right now. I think USC's probably a little bit dropped further than they are, but nonetheless, I really like the way this Oregon team has sort of found their form, and they always sort of do this. They like to make those sort of late Pac-12 runs, and then I think we both jump on them in the NCAA tournament and end up a little disappointed when they lose in the Sweet 16. But nonetheless, they're looking good. All right, let's get into the games we got upcoming this week. So we're going to have a little fun here. We got all the games on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Monday, the lines are already up, but Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'm going to give the lines I think that probably they will be. Our man Dynamite Dave is going to give a little bit of a pick on these games, and we'll see where we land. So we're going to start out Monday with a big matchup in the A-Sun. I know he's big on the A-Sun.
You're challenging me here.
But we got Bellarmine and Jacksonville State, probably two maybe of the top 3 teams in this conference. Jacksonville State's a 7-point favorite here. I really like this Bellarmine team. Granted, I usually take them at home. They seem to be a little bit better home team than road team, but Jacksonville State, 7 points here in A-Sun Showdown.
Give me Jacksonville State at home.
Oh, going with Jacksonville State. Now, they have probably been the better team on the year, but I'm riding my Bellarmine Knights and taking the +7.
Marking these down?
I'm marking them down here. I don't know if real money wager will be placed on the +7 on Bellarmine. So that's probably a little bit of a paper pick here, and probably not quite as confident as I'd like to be, but I'm really interested to see how this game plays out. 2 of the top teams. We mentioned in the Colonial, Townsend has a chance to bounce back. We'll go 2 for 1 here because this is a weird COVID situation. Townsend plays at Delaware on Monday, -1.5, and then Delaware goes to Townsend on Thursday. I put the line at -5 here because I think Townsend's probably the better team. But where are you sitting here? It's probably hard to make a pick because you probably want to know who wins Monday's game because you'll probably take the opposite team on Thursday in such a short turnaround here. But where are you going? Townsend, Delaware, Monday -1.5. Delaware, Townsend, Townsend -5 on Thursday.
Monday, I'm going to take Delaware -1.5, And then I'm going to take the Towson minus the 5 on Thursday. I don't think Delaware is going to take both of these. It's like you said, a lot of times these back-to-back games, more often than not, they end in a split. But I think Delaware is going to take this first one.
Yeah, I think I'm riding with you here. Same sort of feel on both. I like Townsend, at home, and I like Delaware at home, especially Delaware minus 1.5 at home tonight. And then I think Delaware quick turnaround going into Townsend on Thursday. Probably really tough if they win that night. Now, that can all change if Townsend goes in there and wins. And we have a quick turnaround the other way. But next up, interesting matchup in the ACC. We haven't really touched on Virginia. Definitely not I can't say your father's Virginia team. Well, no, you probably can because those are Ralph Sampson teams. Probably not your brother's 1990s Virginia team here. Definitely not their best team in a long time, but still can occasionally throw out a result here. -5 for Virginia tonight versus Louisville. You mentioned you still had a little faith in Louisville here. Where are you leaning on this game tonight?
Yeah, this is a pick I've already locked in. I'm actually really liking Louisville plus the 5 tonight. I think both of these teams kind of have struggles, but Virginia just really seems like they're in no man's land. They have no identity whatsoever. Louisville seems to have a little bit of an identity. They just can't manage to put it together consistently enough. But I think they're going to put it together tonight. I love getting the 5 points with Louisville here.
It's a good thing they didn't pay Chris Mack a whole lot of money to leave Xavier and come to coach Louisville. Wait. Never mind. Next up, I'm leaning Virginia win here, but I think point-wise, you'd probably be smart to take the spread because I don't think the way either of these teams plays lends itself to a wide margin of victory on either side. I think 5's a little much even in a road game. But next up on the ACC slate, Virginia Tech, North Carolina. North Carolina -4.5. Virginia Tech, non-conference, played pretty good basketball, but since they've moved into the ACC, I think they've sort of been found out and probably are the lower tier team. Is this a North Carolina blowout or North Carolina getting blown out situation here?
I think this is one North Carolina could win big here. I'm going to take North Carolina minus the 4.5. I think they're going to bounce back and have a pretty good offensive showing tonight.
Yeah, I lean definitely North Carolina on this one. I think they can sort of beat up on these teams, and they pretty much have. Anyone that doesn't have sort of their class of player, they seem to dominate. Now, when they have stepped up in competition, they've been dominated, but they seem to beat up on these teams pretty good. So I think that 4.5 number is pretty nice there. Really, really nice game in the Big 12. Texas Tech goes to Kansas. Kansas 7-point favorite here. Where are you leaning on this one?
Kansas, we didn't talk about this, survived a scare against Kansas State yesterday. That was back in Kansas State actually led the majority of that game. Kansas pulled it out there at the end. If I was picking this straight up, I like Kansas, but 7 points is just a little much for me. I think this Texas Tech team is really solid. I'm going to take Texas Tech plus the 7.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. I think Texas Tech plus the 7 probably the play. I think that's a couple too many points here, and I like the tempo Texas Tech's probably going to play this game at. Lends itself to a nice cover on the 7. Next up, two teams who have sort of struggled in conference play. St. John's goes to Seton Hall. St. John's probably been a little worse than Seton Hall in conference play. Seton Hall 7-point favorites. They do play much, much better at home than on the road. Where are you leaning on St. John's, Seton Hall here?
I like the Seton Hall team. I'm going to take them minus the 7.
Yeah, I think Seton Hall always been good at home. I think they blow this one out. I haven't liked the way St. John's has looked of recent, not been good basketball. Now we go to the Big Sky, a big showdown in the Big Sky. Weber State has 2 big-time games playing the other 2 top teams in the Big Sky. This one, Weber State goes to Southern Utah. Southern Utah, 2.5-point favorites. Where are you leaning on Weber State versus Southern Utah here?
Can't say this is going to be one I'm really keeping an eye on.
The show Arsenault no longer plays on Weber State.
I'm going to take Southern Utah, go with the home team here, minus 2.5.
Yeah, interesting slate here for Weber State because they play, Northern Colorado later in the week. So they got a tough slate, double road game, Southern Utah, Northern Colorado. Hard places to go. I definitely lean Southern Utah here, minus 2.5 on this one. I think that's good value, though I think Weber State's probably the better team here. But next up, we go to Tuesday's big game, Michigan State versus Illinois. Illinois coming off the bad loss. Michigan State coming off a nice win off a bad loss. I put the line here, Illinois minus 4.5 as almost a 5-point favorite at home. They've been pretty good home team here. Where are you leaning on 4.5 for Illinois?
I think giving Michigan State 4.5 points is a little more generous than the bookmakers might be. So I'm going to take the 4.5 with Michigan State. I think end of the day, they're the better team. Their record may not say it yet, but I like this Michigan State team better than Illinois.
Yeah, I just think the home court here will play out, and I like Illinois at minus that 4.5 number. I put it a little higher just because I think a tough midweek road game, they might bump that up just a tad and sort of ignore the road result for Illinois last week. We'll see how that one plays out. Next up, I just found this game interesting because Temple was starting to play really good basketball, and then they basically missed the last month of the season. They're popping back. Cincinnati's been a little bit hot and cold. I put Cincinnati as 2.5-point favorites here versus Temple. Where are you leaning on this one, Cincinnati versus Temple?
I'm going to take the Bearcats minus the 2.5. I think their experience is going to pay out here.
Yeah, I want to take Temple in this game. I'm curious where this spread is because games like this, I didn't quite know how to read a spread because, if this had been Temple coming off, a nice solid 4-game stretch before they had to miss basically the last 2.5 weeks of a season, I might lead Temple here, but because they haven't really played, Cincinnati's, been in the mix the last couple of weeks, I probably lead Cincinnati as well here. We go to the MAC, another showdown. Buffalo, probably the third best team in the MAC, goes to Toledo. I put Toledo as 7.5-point favorites here at home. Where are you leaning, Buffalo, Toledo?
We'll see here. I'm going to take the 7.5 with Buffalo. I like that. Getting 7.5.
Yeah, I think Buffalo goes down there after a nice win by Toledo. I look for a little bit of a letdown game here. So I like Buffalo, play good basketball. I think they'd cover that 7.5 number. Next up in the Big Ten, you got Maryland versus Rutgers. Rutgers continues to be a good home team, terrible road team. Maryland's starting to get hot here. I put Rutgers at a 5.5-point favorite at home here. Where are you leaning, Maryland, Rutgers on Tuesday night?
I'm back and forth on this team. Maryland just got a big win, but going in on the road again, I'm going to take Rutgers minus the 5.5.
Yeah, I'd lean Rutgers 5.5 on this one too. I just think at home they're a totally different team, and I'm not quite trusting Maryland even after a couple nice wins here. Nice win in the SEC during the week. Mississippi State versus Kentucky. Mississippi State been a little sneaky. They're not quite at TCU's level, but they have pretty solid wins on the year. They haven't beaten anybody great, but they win the games they're supposed to win. Going to Kentucky on Tuesday night, I put Kentucky as 12.5-point favorites in this one. Where are you going on this?
I like 12.5 points for Mississippi State. I think this is a good team. They're kind of up and down. They've had a couple tough losses, but I think they're right up in there with the good SEC teams, and I think they're going to battle, and getting double digits I'm going to take.
Yeah, I would lean Kentucky here. I don't know if Mississippi State quite will have the offense to keep up with Kentucky on that side of the ball. So I'd go Kentucky minus the 12.5. Next up, we talked about it. Texas versus TCU. TCU, another tough game during the week. I put TCU as a 1-point favorite. Probably would have had Texas about a 2-point favorite before the Iowa State win for TCU, but I think at home TCU's probably at least earned maybe a one to pick 'em sort of game here. Texas TCU, where are you leaning?
I'm going to take Texas here plus the one. I think TCU, they got that big upset, but I think Texas is starting to play better basketball, more like they were at the beginning of the year. So I'm going to take Texas.
Yeah, I think I'll ride TCU here. I think TCU's sort of found a rhythm. This is Jamie Dixon's probably best team he's had in a while at TCU after getting off to a hot start. He had a couple, sort of poor seasons there, but I sort of like this team. So I'm going TCU on the -1 here. We go to the Mountain West. Nevada coming off a nice win versus Fresno. Goes to my boys versus Colorado State. Colorado State, I put 12.5-point favorites here. Nevada, Colorado State, what are you thinking here?
I'm going to take Colorado State minus 12.5. I think they're far and away the best team in this conference, and they're going to blow out Nevada at home.
Yeah, I'm starting to win you over with my boys, the Rams. I'm leaning Colorado State, too. I think they blow Nevada out, who's been sort of mediocre even after that nice win versus Fresno. Continue in the Mountain West. Wyoming, Boise State, another really good matchup. Here, I put Boise State as 6.5-point favorites. That might have been a little bit bloated, but I just think Boise State at home, they probably won't want to give a line under 5 because this Wyoming team, I don't know people are paying attention, but they're pretty solid basketball team here with some solid players. So I went Boise State -6.5.
I actually like this Wyoming team. They got robbed the other night, and Boise State doesn't put a whole lot of points on, so I think getting 6.5 here for Wyoming is good. I think this could be a really close matchup.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna take Wyoming.
I think this will be a close, tight matchup as well. So I would probably take the points there with Wyoming, but really interested to watch this game during the week. And then Tuesday, the big Pac-12 showdown, Arizona at UCLA. I put UCLA as 6-point favorites here at home. I think you have to boost UCLA up a little bit here because Arizona, we've talked about it, has really played one, team who we'd consider a top-tier team, and that was versus Tennessee. And they didn't win that game, so I thought UCLA would be a pretty solid favorite here at home.
Yeah, I want to like this Arizona team. I like their roster. I like the style they play. But again, they're going to have to prove it to me, and I don't know if this is going to be it. I think UCLA is going to win this one big. I'm going to take UCLA -6.
Yeah, I think I take spread-wise Arizona, but I do think UCLA wins this game. I just think it'll take a couple more, sort of scab wins here for Arizona to sort of get used to playing this type level. They're about to go through that. I think as they sort of step up in competition, they'll sort of find their rhythm and then start to play these teams a little better. But, I think this will be a level jump and they won't quite be ready for it here in this game. But I thought 6 might be a little much. So I'd probably grab Arizona and the points in this one. All right, Wednesday, interesting game in the Big 12. I don't think it's quite sort of loser leaves town yet here, but I think a loss definitely hurts whoever ends up losing this game here. Oklahoma goes to West Virginia, made West Virginia 4.5-point favorites here at home. Where are you leaning on this one?
I actually think I'm going to take Oklahoma plus the points here. I think I buy them as a legitimate contender a little bit more. I think they've got some more significant wins than West Virginia. So I think they're going to go on the road and give West Virginia all they want, and I'll take the points here.
Yeah, I think I'll probably end up dying with Bobby Huggins this season. I'd probably lean West Virginia here just because this is such a tough road game for these teams out in the Big 12. I'd probably lean West Virginia, but I wouldn't be stunned if they've just been poor in the Big 12. I thought Oklahoma has looked better versus higher level competition so far, but I lean West Virginia at home here. Next up, Florida versus Tennessee. This Florida team I have basically no read on whatsoever. They lose terrible games versus bad teams. They seem to be able to hang with pretty good teams. They have a nice win versus Florida State where they spanked them earlier in the year. But no read on Florida. I think I got a pretty good read on Tennessee. They tend to make Tennessee lines a little bloated, so I went with 9.5 on the Tennessee line here. I thought that was pretty solid number there. Tennessee, Florida 9.5. Where are you going?
Even with that bloated line, I think I'm going to take Tennessee minus the 9.5 here, and I'm going to tell you why. Florida is playing tonight at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
They're going to have to turn around, hit the bus or the plane, and come straight to Knoxville. Get ready for the game Wednesday night in Knoxville. So just one day off between those two road games, and I think that's going to be hard coming in against a really good defensive team in Tennessee. And so Tennessee should be able to dictate how they want that game to go. So I'm going to take Tennessee minus the 9.5.
Yeah, I think I'd ride Tennessee minus the 9.5 too. I've been pretty successful in taking against Tennessee because I thought they've bloated the lines a little bit, but I don't have a great feel on this Florida team, and I don't think they're capable of sort of putting together two road games in a row like that. So I think that's a definite letdown game versus Tennessee there. Next up, we go to the Big South, and a Big South showdown. Two best teams out of the Big South. Winthrop, South Carolina Upstate. I made Winthrop a 3-point favorite on the road here. I'm curious where you're leaning on this one.
I like USC Upstate plus the 3.5.
Right in the Upstate.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going Winthrop because when it comes to the Big South, I always take Winthrop because they always win the Big South. So been a really good sort of team out of the Big South for a while. Upstate played pretty solid basketball this year, but I think Winthrop goes in there and gets the win, even as a favorite here. I'd probably be tough to take them as a road favorite. I wouldn't advise putting money on it, but nonetheless, I think Winthrop's just the better team. All right, really, really nice showdown in the Big East. Excited for this one on Wednesday. Providence goes to Xavier. I put Xavier as 8.5-point favorites at home here. They've been just a dominant home team this season. So I added about an extra point or two onto what I think the line would be on a neutral site for these two teams. I think Xavier's probably the better team. Providence is, I think stunned us all a little bit with how good they have been. So Xavier 8.5 versus Providence. Where are you leaning on this one?
Xavier tends to, if they're going to win a game, they're going to win it big. So I'm going to lean Xavier here on the points, but I like this Providence team, but they're really going to have to string together some wins. This is an opportunity for them to prove to everyone how good of a team they are, but I just don't think they're going to quite get it done. Give me Xavier minus 8.5.
Yeah, I think Xavier's probably the play here. I'm curious to see how Providence handles going into this environment on the road. Next, we go to the other side of the Big South, the other two teams in the Big South here. North Carolina A&T versus my boys from Longwood. Really big fan of Longwood this year. I hope they make a play and get in the tournament. I like this Longwood team. Longwood, I've made 9.5-point favorites. I think sort of those three teams, Winthrop, UC Upstate, Longwood, and A&T, I think A&T's the poor one. So I think Longwood continues to dominate in the Big South this year.
Yeah, I'll take the home team, double digits here.
All right. My man, I got him on the Longwood train. All right. Into the American East. We go with the two top teams out of there. Vermont, Stony Brook. I don't really know how good Stony Brook is. I know Vermont is always, really, really good. Always has solid players. Stony Brook, been solid this year. I probably ride Stony Brook at plus 6.5 here at home, but I think Vermont's probably the better team overall and probably sneaks out a win here.
Yeah, I think you hit the line right on the money here. I like this Vermont around 5 to 8 points. So I'm going to take the Vermont minus the 6.5. I think they're the much better team. It's just going to be a matter of can they cover those points.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right. Interesting one in the Big 12. I don't think it's quite loser leave town, but I do think Iowa State needs to get back on track. Hard place to go down there and do it in Oklahoma City, but Iowa State, Oklahoma State. I put Oklahoma State as 3-point favorites. I might be sort of overvaluing Iowa State, but I still think there's a good basketball team there. So where are you going, Oklahoma State -3 versus Iowa State?
I actually think you're overvaluing Oklahoma State here a little bit. I think they've got some good home wins, but I still think this Iowa State team's better, despite some recent bad losses. So I'm going to take Iowa State getting points here.
Yeah, I think I'm going to ride Iowa State as well at plus the 3. Really, really like that one. All right, fun showdown in the Big East here. Marquette goes to Seton Hall. Seton Hall been a really good home team. Marquette in a really good stretch right now. I put Seton Hall as 6.5-point favorites here. Does Marquette continue the hot streak? Does Seton Hall sort of get back on track? I know it's a 2-game week for them here, so that might be a little bit difficult. But Marquette, Seton Hall 6.5.
I don't know if Marquette can pull off the sweep on the season sweep on Seton Hall here, but I definitely think they can keep this within 6.5. So I'm going to take Marquette plus the 6.5.
Yeah, I that's where I struggled making this line because Seton Hall has the 2 games this week, but I'm just. Yep. I don't know if Marquette can season sweep Seton Hall, especially going there on the road. So it was hard to make that line because I didn't want to make it too low because I think if you go under 5 here, I think everybody's, sort of jumping on stuff here. So Seton Hall minus 6.5 for me on this one. I think they get a little bit of a blowout. We get sort of the other side of Marquette in this one. Next up, interesting game. I talked about Davidson playing good basketball. VCU comes to town. VCU not great, but sort of middle of the pack. Always difficult to play. Davidson's the better team. I made Davidson a 7-point favorite here. Does Davidson continue to play really good, efficient offensive basketball, get the win here?
Yeah, I think them being at home, I think their offense is going to continue to roll. They'll cover the 7.
All right. I think Davidson continues to roll here, though. I really sort of like this VCU team. Disappointed with some of their losses. I don't know if they're going to be quite good enough to sneak an at-large bid. They'll really have to go on a hot stretch to get into there. SEC, we're going A&M versus LSU. A&M's had gotten a couple tough losses here. I think this is a really difficult road game for them to pick up. I put LSU as 12-point favorites on this one. A&M LSU. Where are you looking on this one?
Well, if you look at LSU, they're a struggling team. They've lost 3 in a row. You know what a downward spiraling team needs? A coach with composure. Guess what Will Wade is? He is not a coach with composure. This is one I'm going to eye. If this line's this big, I may take A&M money line upset here. I like A&M in this one to go in. I'm going to take all those points, and like I said, I may be eyeballing the upset pick.
Yeah, I just think LSU gets back on track here, shuts down that A&M team at home, and gets back on track. I don't know if they cover it on 12. I probably wouldn't put money on that. If it went under 10, I'd probably ride, LSU there. Very curious what this line's going to pop up as. I mentioned the Big Sky Conference. Got a big one here. Stephen F. Austin goes to Seattle. I talked about the weirdness that's going on in Seattle. Now, they have played a pretty soft slate of Big Sky teams that has concurred with their win streak. They're about to hit the really, really good teams here. Stephen F. Austin's the first one to go up there. Granted, that is a very, very difficult road trip to make, but I put Seattle as 3.5-point favorites on this one. Which way you leaning on that?
I'm going to take Stephen F. Austin straight up here. I think they're going to go in and get the win.
Yeah, I'm curious. I got my eye on this one, I must say. If they make Seattle favorites, I'm going to sort of start to grab these other top-tier Big Sky teams. I think Seattle comes back to earth a little bit. They were so poor at the start of the season. Now, granted, maybe they were poor because their coach was Big Dick and they all hated him. I don't know. But it seems weird that they were that bad and then all of a sudden they go on this long winning streak and are dominating teams. So I'm riding Stephen F. Austin, certainly if they're getting points here versus Seattle. All right, let's move to Thursday. Not as deep a slate on Thursday as it usually is, but a couple decent games. We already talked about Delaware and Townsend in the sort of double up home and home. We'll move to Ohio State and Minnesota. This Minnesota team has not played good conference basketball. It seems like they sort of do the same thing every year, no matter who the coach. Non-conference, they sort of get out to a hot start, get into conference, start losing games. Nonetheless, tough road game to go there for Ohio State. I made Ohio State a 1.5-point favorite in this one. Where are you leaning?
I'm leaning Ohio State here. I think they'll go in and get it done. I think they may end up being larger favorites than what you think, but I'm definitely going to take Ohio State minus 1.5.
Yeah, I need probably 3 points on the Minnesota side to sort of take them. If they made it around 1.5, I'd probably lean Ohio State. Really interested to see how that line goes, but at 1.5, I lean Ohio State on that one. Back to the Big Sky, I talked about Weber State's difficult little stretch here. They go to Northern Colorado. I put Northern Colorado as 2.5-point favorites here. Curious, more Big Sky action. Where are you leaning Big Sky, Weber State, Northern Colorado?
I picked against them earlier. I'm going to take them here. I'm going to take Weber State plus the 2.5.
Yeah, I think Weber State's a better basketball team than Northern Colorado. Granted, Northern Colorado's played really, really good basketball so far this year. Probably, I think I'd lean them as a favorite right now. But I think a little bit of a collapse is coming for Northern Colorado. They have a very, very, very nice home field advantage. Granted, a handful of these teams have altitude, but Northern Colorado, really, really difficult place to play. And I think they'll hold on here at home. Next up, New Orleans, Houston Baptist. Showdown in the Southland here as the two top teams sort of play battle here. New Orleans goes to Houston Baptist. I think New Orleans is a much better team than Houston Baptist. But still a difficult road trip for them. I got New Orleans as a 1-point favorite here. Where are you leaning on this?
I'm going to take New Orleans here for sure.
Yeah, me too. I ride New Orleans, and I think they're going to win this Southland Conference, especially with a couple of those normal Southland teams down a little bit this year. All right, to the Big Ten. I struggled with this line a little bit. Purdue versus Iowa. I'd take the over in this one would be my first lean, but I made Iowa a 1-point home favorite here. Where are you going, Purdue, Iowa?
I'm going to go with Purdue here. I think they're going to get a little momentum and win both their games this week, so I'm going to take Purdue plus the 1.
Yeah, I think I'm going to sit with Iowa here. I'm curious where this line actually comes in at, but I think it'll be too tough a road game for Purdue there. All right, to the West Coast Conference.
Good game.
Good matchup here. I'm really interested to see because I think 2 teams out of the West Coast Conference gets in. They could sneak a third, and I think it'll probably be a fight between one of these 2 teams, and their head-to-head matchup be really, really important. So St. Mary's versus San Francisco. I put San Francisco as a 2.5-point favorite. Where are you going here? The Gales or the Dons?
I'm taking St. Mary's plus the points.
All right, I'm going the other side of things. I'm going the pride of the Bill Cartwrights, the San Francisco Dons, at minus 2.5 on this one.
We'll watch this game together Thursday night.
Yeah, I think we probably should because this is good basketball here, St. Mary's versus San Francisco. 2 really, really fun teams to watch. All right, lastly, out in the Pac-12, we haven't talked about Stanford a little bit. I think they're a little sneakier than people think. I did put USC as a 12-point favorite here. I don't know if it'll get to double digits, but I think Stanford's a little better than people think, and I think USC's a little worse than people think. But USC 12-point favorite versus Stanford at home. Where are you going there?
I think USC, they've got a couple good matchups this week against opponents. I think USC needs these weaker opponents. I'm not as big of a believer in Stanford as you. I think USC, both tonight and Thursday night, are going to win double digits. I'm going to take them to cover minus the 12.
Yeah, I'm going to continue to ride the Stanford team. I think they're sneaky and have a way of staying in game. It's not always all that pretty, but they tend to stay in games here. So I like Stanford on that one. Curious what that number's going to come in as. All right, those are our best games during the week. So we'll be back on Thursday night. Show will probably pop up on Friday so we can preview the weekend, take a look back at what went down on the week. But that's our college basketball show, The Road to Madness. Be sure to like and subscribe. That's our show, and we're out. Good! They did it!